You know, when you think about any great project, there's always one thing it has in common, and it's probably not what you think. It's not the budget, it's not the tech, it's the people. So today, we're going to break down the one thing that gets overlooked time and time again, but is absolutely crucial for success: mastering stakeholder analysis.
I mean, we've all seen this happen, right? You see a project with this amazing concept, a super talented team, everything looks like it's going for it, and then it just fizzles out. Or worse, it totally crashes and burns, and you're just left there scratching your head thinking, what on earth went wrong?
Well, here's the secret. 9 times out of 10, the problem isn't the what, it's the who. Whether a project flies or fails really comes down to understanding, managing, and getting all the different people who have a stake in the outcome on the same page.
Okay, so to make this all feel a bit more real, we're going to walk through a case study. Let's imagine a fictional mobile app called InfraSeek. It's designed to make buying and selling real estate way easier. This will be our testing ground to see how all these ideas work in practice.
So first things first, what even is a stakeholder? It's a really simple but super powerful idea. Basically, it's anyone, from your main customer to your biggest investor, who has an interest in your project and can, in some way, big or small, affect whether it succeeds or fails.
So for our app, InfraSeek, our very first job is to figure out who these people are. Honestly, you can think of it like you're casting a movie. You have to know who all the main players are before you can even start rolling the cameras. All right, let's start with the most obvious group, the app users. These are the folks browsing for homes, the people whose experience is going to make or break this thing. Their needs are absolutely front and center.
And then you've got the real estate agents. Now for them, InfraSeek isn't just some app they scroll through for fun. No, this is a professional tool. They're counting on it to list properties, find new clients, and get deals done. So what they want is going to be very different from the average user.
Of course, we have InfraSeek's own management team. These are the people steering the ship, right? They're making sure the app not only works, but that it actually fits into the company's bigger goals and strategy.
And you absolutely cannot forget the investors. These are the people who are putting up the cash to make it all happen. And you can bet their main concern is seeing a good return on that investment. Their power to influence big decisions is huge. Okay, so now that we have our list, we can start sorting them out. You've got your internal stakeholders like the management and the IT team, they're inside the company. And then you have external ones like the app users and investors. Making this distinction is super important because it helps you realize they're all coming from different worlds with totally different priorities. So we've got our cast of characters, but let's be real, you can't give every single person the same amount of your time and energy. It's just not possible. So how do you prioritize? Well, that's where this simple but honestly brilliant tool comes into play: the power and interest grid.
This whole grid is built on 2 very simple ideas. On one axis, you have power, which is just how much someone can push the project in a certain direction, whether that's through money, authority, whatever. And on the other axis, you have interest, which is how much the project's outcome is actually going to affect them personally.
And when you put those 2 together, you get 4 clear strategies. If someone has high power and high interest, you have to engage them closely, keep them in the loop constantly. High power but low interest, just keep them happy and informed. Low power but super high interest, their feedback is gold. You need their insights. And finally, low power, low interest, you just kind of monitor them. No need to go crazy. All right, time to put this to the test. Let's start with the heavy hitters for our InfraSeek app. Based on everything we've talked about, where would you put the company management and the investors on this grid?
Yep, you got it. They land smack dab in that high power, high interest box. I mean, they have the authority to make or break the project and a huge financial stake in whether it succeeds. These are the people you need to manage very, very closely.
Okay, now let's think about another group, like regulatory bodies. You know, the people who enforce all the real estate and data privacy laws. Their power is off the charts. They could shut you down in a heartbeat. But they don't really care about your app's features or your marketing plan. So they're high power, low interest. The strategy? Keep them informed and make sure you're following all the rules.
And that brings us to our last big group, the app users and the real estate agents. Now, one single user doesn't have a lot of power, but as a group, their interest is incredibly high. They're the ones who are actually going to use the product day in and day out. Ignoring them, well, that's just a recipe for disaster.
All right, so we've identified who's important, we've mapped them out. What's the next logical step? Well, now we have to dig a little deeper and ask the most important question of all. What does each of these groups actually want from this app?
For the app users, it's all about a smooth, trustworthy experience. They want search filters that just work, they want amazing virtual tours, and they need to feel safe when they're chatting with an agent. For them, it's all about building confidence. But then you flip over to the real estate agents, and it's a completely different story. They're not just browsing, they're working. They need powerful tools to manage their listings, systems to track new clients, and data to see what's working. For them, it's all about efficiency and growing their business.
And finally, we have management. They're looking at this from a 30,000-foot view. They need to see the key business numbers, the KPIs. They're thinking about how to make money, how to keep data secure, and how to make sure the app can handle millions of users. And here's where it gets really tricky, right? Their need to add monetization features might directly conflict with the user's desire for a simple, clean experience. So after going through our whole InfraSeek example, what's the big takeaway here? Well, this entire process can actually be boiled down to a really simple but incredibly powerful blueprint that you can use on pretty much any project you ever work on. Here it is. It's really that simple. A 3-step framework. First, identify everybody who has a stake in what you're doing. Second, map out their power and their interests so you know who to focus on. And third, and maybe most importantly, really, truly take the time to understand what each of these groups needs from you to make it a win for them.
So, next time you're starting a project, just ask yourself this one question. Who are the key people I've been overlooking? The ones with the power to make this happen, or the ones who will be most affected by my work? Answering that question honestly, well, that might just be the secret ingredient you've been looking for.